Hey guys, this will be video 4 for the how to restore a vintage Gibson SG. This is a 69 and I've covered all the specs in the first couple of few videos. So if you're interested, if you're just tripping up on the video series, go check those out because I'm going to just dive right in and talk about what it is that we're going to do in this video. I don't think I'm going to do any work because it's fairly late at night and I really want to be focusing on all this work without any distraction or trying to explain it. But I'll spend as much time as I can in this video explaining the changes that we're going to make to this body and to get it under control. Okay, so when you first start addressing a guitar like this, that is obviously a flat top, flat back, it's a little bit deceptive because you might look at it and think, okay, well, that's pretty cool, then that's going to be flat. And this should be flat along with a flat plane, but unfortunately you come to the realization that it's not, and it's actually pitched in. It's like pitched in like this, and it's actually pitched down like that, and basically that magic number is about right at 2 degrees. It's a little weird because this one's different from that one. So if you hear me say 1.5 degrees or 1 3/4 degrees versus 2.5 degrees, something's kind of cattywamped with this. So when you discover things like that right there, when you put your little tool up here and start verifying it, and there's immediate discrepancies, well, then you can't really trust either one of them. But this is the one that can be trusted, just going straight to the finish line through some process of elimination and verification. But one thing I did determine is that the bottom of this pocket and this back wall is perfectly true with the top of the body. So it is not pitched right now, nor is this back wall cut in. Like if this were pitched 5 degrees real extreme, then there's a possibility that back wall might be cut in, but it's not. So just if you look at something, don't make the assumption, okay, well, that's going to be square with the top. Not necessarily. But by verifying this, that should show. I was able to determine that yes, this back wall and the bottom of that pocket is in line with the top. So it is a perfectly true square cut. And I was concerned that, I wonder if this thing might be wider up here than it is in the back. So I had to do some verifying to make certain that that was all accurate. And yes, I found that the mortise work that was done here, even though this mortise work was done from overhead, it's all true. It's not spread open or anything like that. Nonetheless, we want to get it under control and turn it back into a traditional mortise where it has the pitched bottom, and I'm going to be pitching the bottom of this one 2 degrees, and then each side wall will be perfectly, true and perpendicular to the top or the back. And then as well as once this tenon goes in the back here, there's not going to be any of this 1/4 inch gap crap going on where there's just sloppy glue work. I'm going to be machining this so it's actually going to be glued in, and it's such that it will be acting like a through body design. There won't be any voids in there at all. Now, Eric and I both had discussed the strong possibility of epoxying this neck in, which is what I really want to do. Not necessarily to keep the neck from falling out of the body or any of that crap, but I want to lend as much strength into the body. I want to introduce as much strength into the body from the neck as I do from the body to the neck, meaning, like I just said, as acting like a through neck design. But we've got this issue with this super thin body. You just can't do anything else up here. And if you were to try to come up here and strengthen any of this stuff, you're just going to run the risk of devaluing the guitar. And another thing, I think I've already covered it in the past videos, but some of the guitars, through the years, there were so many changes from like one year to the next, where some of them were like mortise, they had the radius cut up into that body area right there. But I got to tell you, this is by far the best design as far as protecting the body from warpage. And I can't remember which video I talked about this in, but when you take out that much mass, you greatly run the risk of the body either convexing or concaving, actually warping. But the cool thing about this, the first thing I did when I pulled it out of the box was verified, okay, how true is it? And I don't know if you can see that, but I don't think that's a convex as much as it's just that when they were doing all this shaping and sanding, it just kind of rounds off a little bit right here and it rounds off a little bit right there, because on the back it's really beautiful. It's fairly true. It's got a little bit of a hollow there in the middle, but that just could have been from the orbital sander work. They might have put just a minuscule dish in the body. But when you can put a straight edge across a body like that, that's that thin, the only thing that saved them basically on this design was the fact these bodies were Hunter and mahogany, and that has a little bit of a round off right there as well. So it might be some sort of intentional design that once the body is built and it's square, on the two surfaces are flat, it might be that they just sand off the edges a little bit, because everything about these are truly handmade. But we're going to bring it back to a traditional, much safer tenon, but not 1.5 inch wide. It will be, I think this one's 1 5/16 of an inch wide. And regardless, whatever it is, that's what the new tenon is going to be. And I'm pretty sure it's 1 5/16 of an inch. Well, tell you what, it won't take me a sec because I've already machined this one to fit it. Well, I machined this little sacrificial piece of poplar first. Yeah, 1 5/16. So for Wikipedia information, if you want to go plug that info out, the 1969 tenon would have been 1 5/16 of an inch wide, but it would have been the deep V design, which we're going to get rid of. Okay, so in real time, the only thing that needs to be done next is to come in here and not use a chisel. But if you're going to be working with something this delicate, these are the best tools you could work with. I get these at Woodcraft. Well, I say I get these. I got these 25 years ago, and they are the actual same blade that I've been using since then. And I think they might have been $15 each, so they ended up being about $45. But you've got the round that had a needle point that actually broke the needle off about 1/4 inch, but it's still plenty pointed enough. You have the triangle, and you have this one is flat, but obviously it points. And then it's one of my favorite because it actually radiuses right here. And in addition, I had just a straight one, but I broke it off, so I just epoxied it atop a little stick. So if I have to, I could do this right here in order to clean some of that off. But we'll do this in real time because I'm about to show you how, well, let me just start doing it. That way you'll understand. So what we had when this original neck was glued in here, it wasn't making any contact at all. There was only a very small amount of glue right here on this side and a little bit on that side right there. There was a little bit around that area, and there was a little bit up on the top. And I would say, well, it might have all gotten stuck to the neck. Well, it might have been on the neck, but it was not. It was not actually gluing the neck to the body. Every bit of this mahogany, as you can see back here, there's no glue residue at all. And I've already taken this little rasp right here and cleaned off that little bit of residue that was on that side, just enough to knock the glue off, as well as took my flat surgical chisel and kind of cleaned up that broken dowel back there. There's still a little bit. But what I wanted to do is just make certain that I had a real nice clean pocket to work with. And be real careful right there, because if you grabbed hold of that, you could tear the whole back through. And what I did before I started doing any of this work was I put the tape right there, and then I saturated this area with the medium strength glue, saturated that to make certain that it really stiffened it up. And then I found a real small hairline crack right here, and it was actually moving. When I pressed on this, it was separating from the back. So what I did was pushed it back in place, got the tape on the back, then I saturated that glue, that thin, into that broken joint right there, because you want to make certain that you've got, all that strengthened before you start sanding on a little bit. So let's do a little bit of sanding. I'm going to use this one right here. I can still feel the little, really, it's actually really, it feels like stainless steel because it's saturated with that CA glue. And because that is so thin out there, you know, obviously you gotta be careful. But these little tools are so surgical. I mean, you can feel everything that you're doing in this tool, because if you were to try to just pick up a little block like this and start sanding, you would lose the feel and the delicate touch, and you might start screwing it up. Start going across a little bit, get in there. The mahogany is really strong, but we don't want to push it to its limits. So I'm giving it some support in the back to make certain that I don't cause it to collapse. Okay, just about to get there. And then just start going across it. It's feeling pretty good right there. Feels great. And if anything, what's being revealed to me, that's a maple dowel. So that lets you know that odds are, when they originally glued this neck in, uh, the whole purpose of the strap button was to conceal a maple dowel that they had put in the back. And that maple dowel would have been fine if they had have left this thickness back here. But when they came in and they sanded that on the taper, the dowel lost every bit of its effect. And I saw that in a 68, I think it was a 68 SG, where this guy was restoring, I think it was in Italy, but you could just do a search on 68 SG neck replacement or something like that. And the guy's got some really, really good pictures. They look like they might have been from the 90s, the way the website was, but nonetheless, he did a really good shot. And I saw, when you were looking at the neck laying over on the table, I could see this white spot that I wasn't really sure what was going on. And sure enough, that would have been the maple dowel that went up into the bottom of the neck. And then it might have even been that when they installed the neck, before the dowel got put in, they might have used a screw to just screw down to pull the neck down in place. In other words, they're fastening from the back with a screw, and maybe like a small washer or like a large washer even. And then even if they made an imprint into the mahogany, well, they were going to be sanding that off anyway to clean up the transition from the body to the neck heel. Because see, you've got this whole neck heel thing going on, that when you install the neck into this body, I can't hold it. I can assure you, they're not gonna fit in and be the perfect height. You're going to be machining the height differences together, and that might have been their reasoning behind. Well, if anything, uh, whatever they were thinking, hell, I don't know. I don't really care. It's irrelevant. But all I do know is that there was a strong possibility, after it was screwed and glued, then it got drilled out and a dowel hammered in it, and then that dowel got sanded flush. and then the actual bottom strap button covered it up. Okay, so it's really cool when you do these restorations how you can start uh, doing a forensic study. Let's see how close we are on our fitment. Now I have to get behind the camera to see this. We're not there yet, but we're pretty close. Okay, now, and then what you want to do here is sight down this board and check out the roll axis. You know, you've got the roll, the pitch, and the yaw. Right now, since it's got a rounded bottom, we're checking out the whole rolling issue right now. We'll deal with the pitch and the yaw. Well, the yaw doesn't matter, but right now, oh, there might have been some dust in there because it just. Oh, I heard it hit the table, so I blew out a little piece of dust. Sorry guys, I got the light on the other side. Okay, that's what I should be showing. Okay, so I've got a really nice fitment right there with my little template. Let me just get behind the camera and not say anything. It's looking really nice, and I got to be really careful because even this plane right here, it's kind of cattywamped. So it's kind of really unfortunate, but there's no way I'm going to be able to come in here with the new heel and it looked like it was done with a CNC machine. I'm actually going to have to shape the heel to kind of follow this weird funky plane back here, but also not getting into sanding into any of the original walnut. It'll be a breeze. I'm making it sound like it's more difficult than it really is, but basically it's going to end up looking like that right there. Okay, it's going to be really cool. And basically, Eric, that is the heel I put on all of my like 50s and now 60s replicas and or restorations. So it's not going to be this goofy thing going all the way out to here. That's unnecessary. Well, it probably was necessary because they had such a weak join, but the 69 would have come out to about right there. But I'll be taking it back here. It'd be really beautiful. Let me see if I can stand it up. Sorry. Because this is pretty important for the client to start seeing my reasoning behind how I'm going to be doing things. So it'll look something like that right there. As far as the distance is what I'm talking about. Okay. All right. So let me get this table cleaned up a little bit. Get everything under control here. Okay, where's my tool? I'll just use this one. Yeah, see, I'm still bumping into it a little bit, but only on the front. So now I can use this radius edge on the back here. Make sure you give it support because the last thing you want to do is tear loose. And quite frankly, this is ridiculous overkill, but I just want you guys to see, if you do a real clean, precise job on your initial fitment and all your initial work, once you're truly getting ready to just like glue your neck in, it's just going to go together like that. The pitch is going to be there. The 2-degree pitch is going to be there. The yaw axis is going to be perfect. So your pitch axis will be preset. Your yaw axis will be set, and by having the bottom of this perfectly flat, then your roll, you will already verify that you're not that you're not rolling, that when you press down and you put the clamp on it and glue it in, whether you glue it in with like a tight bond or a resorcinol or animal hide glue, or like if you epoxy it in like we're planning on doing, then when you put that simple clamp on there, and then I'll actually have a strap around it that will be pulling, that will be assuring that the neck is pulled in. We'll get there. This is going to be another couple of videos from now, but I'll show you how simple it is to glue a neck in as long as you did a really good job on your machine work. In this case, typically all this machine work would be done with a router where you would just have a template and you would just go zip, 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 and you'd be finished, and that template would already be that jig would already be pitched, and you would be cutting all those points at once, as I mentioned in the front of the video. But every bit of this is needs to be done by hand to assure that we don't risk losing the guitar. And it's not nearly as complex as it might seem. The most important thing is, because you're working with really small pieces here, is to, not epoxy. This is jet glued to double-sided tape, basically. And then you machine all this on your router table. And then see, I'm about to go over there on the miter saw and just cut this off square. So it'll look more like that. Well, it'll look almost identical to that once it goes in. But again, I don't think I want to do this on camera. Let me check the time. I may do this on camera. Yeah, it's only 21 minutes. So you get the gist of my reasoning. So let me just see how our fitment is right now, because if we're fitting, then it's ready for me to do the 2-degree cut, because you can't epoxy it in until it has the 2-degree cut. And also, when I do epoxy it in, I may have already covered this, but it'll only be about, I think I did, it'll only be about 3/16 of an inch tall out here. It doesn't require a lot of girth like on a Les Paul. If you watched the last video I did for the 71 Les Paul. But what is critically important is, see, this is quarter sawn. This is quarter sawn going in this direction right here. And that little bit of quarter sawn, even though it's only like 3/16 of an inch thick out here, it's going to be getting a little bit closer to a quarter of an inch back here. This whole thing might be a little bit less than that. This might be under 3/16 and just slightly under a quarter back here. But you would be surprised how incredibly strong that little piece of a quarter sawn under mahogany is. And then once if in case I forget, I'll be waxing this piece of poplar so that it doesn't get glued in. I'll have wax and have all that cleaned up, so that once this goes in, like here on a pitch, then I've already machined this right here in order to go in the side. Okay. I don't think it's flat. Let me get it in there straight. And again, I'll do a little bit more fitment before this thing gets epoxied in. I'm not going to be doing this I'm not going to be epoxying this in on camera, but I'm just showing you what your target is. And how did you achieve those cuts? With that bit right there for that cut, top of tabletop, and this bit right here for the bottom cut. See, the bearing was able to, I'm so sorry, I hope my cap wasn't in the way. I got a bad habit about that. Let me go over that again. This is the bit you would use to cut that, and it could either be cut, yeah, it would definitely have to be cut on the table like this, because you have to have that flat on the table, which will now get cut off on the table saw. It's just going to end up being a very small piece of little triangle, but you have to step into it with this cut here, and then that cut right there, which the bearing is able to ride along the poplar and then make that cut. Okay. So you're having to work with some, fairly substantial bits, but it's fairly delicate work. And then on the other side, then you'll be turning this in this direction, and it will get epoxied in right there. And again, you put wax on your piece of poplar so that you're only using it as a guide to assure that any work that you do is actually true and square. And I may even come in here with some sort of, because this is going to be on a pitch. One thing's for certain, I know for a fact that I'm going to have some sort of large, let me use an actual board that I would be using. I would be clamping something like this. In other words, before I epoxy it in, I would be dry clamping that right there, true with the body, and then come in here. This is hell doing this stuff on camera. And I would be verifying that it's the same. See, it's low. This side is low because it's not making full contact, but it's perfect over here. And that's just from an eyeball fit. So if we're that close right there, then it might just be by clamping this side over here. Might have gone too far. It's hard to tell. You get the point. So, and I guess I could just turn it around and look at it and see what it looks like. Because a lot of times, what do you see and I have no idea. You guys tell me what you see. I can't see it. One thing that is pretty darn cool, that board is sitting perfectly, I think it is, atop that stud and that stud right there. So that might be one way to verify that you get your piece of mahogany put in properly. See, right now, this is just on a pitch, and there's a void back here. It's only making contact out here. So that's what I meant by this will have to get machined on that 2-degree pitch, so that once it does get glued in, then I'll be taking this off after I do the cut, and then temporary gluing it to have that blocking that is then acting as a block to actually hold it in. Okay. So sorry for the confusion, but this is one of those things. It's like I've never done this before, and it's figuring it out is one thing, and then trying to figure out how to explain it is a completely other thing. So anyway, let me check the time. Let me pause briefly. Okay, I had contemplated whether I should even start talking about this, but I think it's kind of a necessary evil. The most important thing when you're working with a guitar that has a vibrato on it, and I'm not going to lay it up there because I might forget and think that I have it screwed down. I don't want to scratch the guitar. But if you've got this vibrato on here, this is considerably higher than a hardtail. And what I'm about to talk about is the break angle of the strings. As the strings come up here and go across the bridge, they have to have a certain break angle minimum in order to really sound decent. And there's this whole split in the difference of if it's too steep, well, it sounds great, but then you get binding issues and tuning issues. But if it's too high, it plays great and it stays in tune, but it has a tendency to harp, especially if the strings are really long. If it's the B6 Bigsby on a big body Gretsch 6120, if the strings are way back here and the bridge is too high, you have a tendency to hear it harping back here, and not in a good way. But the most important thing about this guitar right here, it's so thin. Everything, all the dimensions are so critical that you have to make certain that you don't install this neck the way you would install it into an Explorer type guitar. Like if I was installing this neck into an Explorer, I would be pretty much flushing out with the body right there. But I found, after doing all my extensive research, I came to the guaranteed conclusion, and even after a lot of online research and like reading the forums from luthiers, the neck is actually up about 3/16 of an inch, almost, not that much. We'll just say slightly over 1/8 of an inch. The fretboard does not flush out with that line right there. So all these times where I've been holding this and showing this, that's incorrect. It's actually higher for multiple reasons. You have the pick guard material, which goes all the way up to that edge right there. That's one issue. And if you did not raise that fretboard, the fretboard would pretty much almost be falling below the pickguard material. So that's one issue. But where I'm going with this, the major issue is the pickup height. You can only lower that pickup so much until it falls out of the pickguard. And since it does not have the surrounds like the traditional type guitar, then there's a lot more going on with the installation of that neck, the lower, getting it. Everything that I saw in the pictures, I'm not going to start talking about that. Everything that I saw in the pictures, the neck, yes, is down here, but then the fretboard, it's almost like an arch top. It has to be arched. I mean, it has to be notched. And it's a very deceptive design because you would think it bottoms out here. It does not. This lower will be getting notched in order to fill in that void. There will be a void right there. And I guarantee when this neck came out, the original neck came out of it, that lift material stayed with the neck, glued to the bottom of the fretboard. So be really careful if you're restoring a guitar like this and you don't have the neck, because man, you get yourself in major trouble. But I'm going to clarify that again. I made this little, template here or this little jig here to work with, and then I immediately discovered that. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. Uh, I immediately discovered that this is where the pickup needs to be as far as coming out of the pick guard. This is where the pickup needs to projection is what I'm talking about. Height here, it cannot be below that right there, because all of the vintage late '60s, even the early '60s that I saw, um, the pickups were fairly high out of the body. So on that note, I realized that okay, well, I'll just make this little template or this little jig, and I'll set it up here, and I'll start then verifying my neck clearances and heights and all that stuff by the strings going across the bridge and all. I mean, going across the pole pieces into the bridge and all that jazz. But then I realized very quickly that the studs here are too long for this one. So Eric, proceed with caution, as I mentioned in like video one. I don't know if they ever intended for these neck pickup to have a long-legged pickup. It might need to be short. Now I could cut these studs off and it should clear fine, but I don't want to because I need these studs for my other Les Paul type arch top guitars. So just be aware that when I install the neck, when the fretboard is in that location right there, it will be in the appropriate. It's not going to be that high, but it will be in the appropriate location based on the original design for this guitar. Primarily only because the bridge on this guitar is running uh, in excess of an eighth inch higher than a traditional flat top guitar. Even like the Explorer replicas that I build, this bridge will be running about an eighth inch higher. So I kind of shouldn't have brought that up, but I guess I just say that says I'll be building the guitar properly, but it'll be your responsibility to make certain that you go with the correct pickup in this location right here. And it may just be that all you need to do is just snip off the bottom of well, whatever that stud is, I guess. Okay. So based on that information, and also I'll go ahead and talk about this bridge a little bit, because back here at this location, and fortunately we did have the actual studs in the body, so that helped me realize right on the front end Huh, those are really high out of the body, and I didn't think a lot about it when I first started doing the calculations. This is tricky. There it is. Okay, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here in just a second once I get this on here. Okay, that's considerably higher than I typically ever run them. And I don't know if I have a bamboo skewer, but typically, if I have when I'm doing a flat top guitar, I slide a bamboo skewer under each little thumb wheel, and that's the target height that I want. And the magic number ends up being um, right at about 11/16 of an inch from the top of the body of the guitar to the bottom of the D string. But on this guitar, because even the pick guard comes around behind the bridge, you don't see that gaping uh, distance under there. What you see is the back of the well, you really don't see much because you got the bridge up there, but what you see is this right here. So it appears as though the bridge is not nearly as high out of the body as it actually is, like if you remove the pickguard. So all right, so with that information, the SG is considerably different than the Explorer type, because look how high that is. That would really spook you if you were building this guitar without having this work routed right here. You would be terrified that you were going to be getting the strings too high. But you're not, because what's amazing is once this, again, it's not on the bottom, it's up about that location right there. It's on that 2-degree pitch, and it's perfect because it feels like a Gibson product because it has the pitched neck, but it also is high enough to allow your break angle back here to be sufficient. Okay, that's everything right there. You miss that and you lose your guitar. So it's got a really nice break angle the way the design is, because this flushes out once it's under string tension. That's pressed all the way down to the body. Well, it even has the 4 or 5 screws in it as well, but nonetheless, it runs a lot higher. And every bit of this engineering and all this work back here has to anticipate that right there, as I've already clarified. So I say all that to say this. I think the SG is a far more complex guitar to build than the Explorer replicas and the Flying V's. There's a lot of engineering going on with this little guitar right here that is completely different from the other flat top guitars from this company. So very interesting and very humbling as well, because it puts you in your place and you realize, man, I'm gonna have to engineer this out to make certain I don't I don't make any mistakes. Which it's one of those things you might not realize what you're doing on the front end, but even if you did make a mistake and maybe playing that or plow that too deep, you could just make up for it by building the neck up higher, stuff like that. Eventually, it would have been self-correcting, and it would not have been something that would have been irrecoverable. Okay, so let me check the time and pause here. Okay, let's dive back in. It took about 15 minutes and thought about how to go ahead and just do this in real time. And the cool thing about it is, if it doesn't work, then I can always cut another one. But I got a feeling it's going to work perfectly because I did the math. Let me see if I get this in the camera. I drew the sight lines. I don't know if that's going to show. See, there's a line right there. In other words, I got 2 degrees. I'm preparing to make the 2-degree cut, but I'll be cutting. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if that's even on the camera. I'll be cutting on this. See, there's a pencil line right there. I hope you can see it, but that's the height in the back. So let's assess how tall it's going to be in the back. How's that for guessing? It's actually over 1/4. No, And see that I will say this, that spooks me just, no, it's a quarter. I wasn't expecting it to be that much, but that's pretty cool. And then up on the front, it's going to be just under 3/16 of an inch. So by the time it gets connected to that paper thin piece right there, it will be approximately a 3/16 of an inch shelf here and a 1/4 inch in the back. Perfectly flat. And how do we cut that and not screw it up? I have masking tape right here and make certain that this is really pressed in. I have this block that I use. This is a block from the 1800s. This is quarter sawn antique pine. This is how I cut my fretboards on this. So if I trust it to use as a jig to cut all my fretboards on the router table, I definitely trust it as a means by which to cut this. So you put your tape on here, and then you're going to temporarily glue this right here, but you got to make certain you get it true. And this shouldn't happen because I just put this on the table saw and I straight line corner cut it on a real clean 90. So what I'm getting ready to do now is just temporarily glue this to that end. Make a mark. Doesn't need nearly this much, but sometimes overkill is good. Okay. Most important thing is that when you go together, that you're either flush on the back or there's a little bit of a lip, and I left a little bit of a lip there. Okay. You hold it, and you hold it, and you hold it. And since I put that much glue on there, I'm going to hold it for about 10 seconds. Now we will be able to go over to our miter saw, put this large block against the fence, and won't even have to touch this. Our fingers are nowhere near the blade. We're perfectly safe. We're not trying to do it on a table saw and run the risk of it getting cattywamped. We've got a real nice join and everything's nice and square. And then all we'll have to do is just set the miter saw on 2 degrees or 1.5 degree or whatever degree we may be wanting to cut that on. And to make certain that I clarify what I'm doing, I'm getting ready to cut on the inside of that pencil line right there. And it will leave that little shallow taper. And you should understand what I'm about to do because I've spent enough time talking about my theory and process. But you want to do all this round machine work first before you do this straight cut because all that stuff is easy when it's square. So let me pause and go make a one pass cut, and then we'll see what it looks like. Okay, this turned out really well. That's our piece. Look how nice and true that is. That's, there's no way you could have gotten it that true if it was just a small piece. And right now, obviously, don't touch this. Leave all of this in place because now you can use this small board to do your test fit work. And in the event it was too much or not enough, well, you could come back up here and you could epoxy this to that and let it dry overnight and then cut it again because all you're doing is you're just filling in the voids. And again, with this right here, there's positively no void whatsoever. Let me get this off so it doesn't fall. So let's just embrace our craftsmanship. There's a $25 upcharge for me having to do this, Eric. But it includes the 2 little side pieces as well. I'm kidding with you, man. And see back there, before this gets epoxied in, well, I'll just go ahead and make the mark. You would basically just come back here and simply score that, and then trim that off and make sure you go back just a little bit, because the last thing you want to be doing is to be sticking out, and now you're in here trying to sand it down and you splinter off your original. Better for this to just be a filler piece. I would rather it be an eighth of an inch too short than a 64th of an inch too long, because that would be a nightmare to get that under control. So that should be pretty. It'll actually will be really easy for me to hit it spot on, because I'll be cutting that and fitting it, and then making certain it's flush. Because as I mentioned in the installation of this neck, when I install, I'll be gluing all 7 sides. You know, it'll be side 1, side 2, side 3, side 4, which will be straight, side 5, which will be straight out all the way up to the top. Oh wait, I lost my count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's kind of confusing. See, there's the one side back there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So as I've already clarified, and especially for you guys that have truly been watching this series, the whole idea is once this neck is fit, that if it's epoxied in or glued in with a hide glue or something like that, that all 7 sides are glued and making a really exceptional fit. And what does that equate to? Strength and tone, strength and tone, strength and tone. It's going to be off the charts. So, and is it Gibson manufacturing? Actually, no, it's not. It's me. Because if and I'm not being arrogant, I'm just being confident in saying that if you do this type of work, you're going to be building exceptional guitars. And it's awesome to be able to understand how simple it is to pull this stuff off, but also then to actually do it and then see it all come together. And what's even more exciting is to be able to do it on camera, so that maybe it will inspire you guys out there that are exceptional woodworkers to realize, wow, okay, man, it's time to pull Grandpa's 60s SG out and go to town and put this thing back together and it sound like a tone monster, which it will. So by the time we get these little fillets in right here, it's going to be really awesome. And they will be flushing up perfectly on the original side. So I'll be using that original sidewall there and that original sidewall right there. Okay. Now I can end the video. So I appreciate you guys dropping in. And I'm not sure when the next video will be for this guitar, because I've got a lot of work to do as far as getting this neck put together, getting this neck tapered, getting this, or I should call it a lower shaped. So I'll be tapering and shaping before the fretboard even gets glued on. And it will be acting like the other guitars that I always build, or all the other necks that I always build. The neck will be pretty much 99% finished before the fretboard ever gets glued down. And if there's any sort of just a little bit of movement in this neck, that the lower, it will allow me the opportunity to clean up that plane. So what I'm saying is, I got a lot of work to do. And the next video, this will all be epoxied in, and we'll see. I may have the neck pre-fit, where I'll go ahead and be cutting all this tenon and shaping and fitting and shaping and fitting, and just verifying that that 2 degrees is actually correct. Because if it's not, well, throw this over to the side and start over. Or either, let's say it was not enough and I needed 2.25 degrees. Well, then leave this material in the back, glue it back on that other piece, but permanently, like glue it on with a tight bond, let it dry, and then just come down here and set your miter saw at the 2.25 degrees and cut off a little bit more out here, but just make certain that the blade just feathers back here, and then come check it and verify. So speaking of that, I probably won't even epoxy that in until, at a minimum, I've got temporary, like I might build a little temporary for testing so that I can put that in there and then actually come across and start doing my straight edge assessment, pitch assessment. And if I need, and the magic number is at this point right here, the bottom of the string is basically going to be 5/16 of an inch. So if this were 5/16 of an inch here on the appropriate pitch, then it should be hitting at about 3/4 of an inch for this guitar back here. On my other guitars, 5/16 of an inch from this point here up to the bottom of the string equates to 11/16 of an inch at the D string back here. And what does that feel like? It feels like a 1958 Explorer, Flying V, you name it. The Modern, I guess. I've never seen a Modern or played a Modern, but I've built enough of the Explorers and the Vs, the replicas, that I know exactly what they need to feel like. And this strange bird right here, like I said, it really humbled me, but it just boiled down to, well, it really just boils down to it's exactly what I've been building, but about 1/8 of an inch higher because it has the pick guard under it. Okay. So think about those things because pick guard, no pick guard, it can really make a big difference in whether or not the guitar feels like it should. So I appreciate you guys dropping by, and if you made it this far, you definitely are interested in restoring a vintage guitar. So let me check the time. 51 minutes. Man, I was hoping I could get out about 40 minutes, but it's a lot of information. So I appreciate you guys dropping in. I'll see you in the next video.